and welcome to The Watchman. Folks, we are living in a dangerous but historical moment. Right now, you have a front seat to the complete unraveling of the Middle East as we know it. A terrorist army calling itself the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, better known as ISIS, is in the process of forming a caliphate over large portions of Iraq and Syria. Look at the areas highlighted here in red. A radical jihadist Islamic State is being established by brute force in the very heart of the Middle East. Make no mistake, Iraq and Syria have now ceased to be nation states. Those countries, as we know them, are gone. And it's a good bet that ISIS will look to eventually expand its caliphate into Jordan and Lebanon after it consolidates its gains in Iraq and Syria. In the meantime, Iran is Iran, closing on nuclear weapons and sponsoring its terror proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad as they wreak havoc across the region. Today, we're going to talk about all of that and much more with my guests, Middle East expert Tawfik Hamid, author of Inside Jihad, and CBN contributor Raymond Ibrahim, author of Crucified Again, Exposing Islam's New War on Christians. Gentlemen, welcome. Tawfik, great to have you back with me in D.C. Great to have Raymond out of Virginia Beach. And I want to start not by talking about ISIS, but analyzing the latest events out of really the most influential and populous Arab nation, Tawfik, Egypt. Now, you're intimately familiar. You're an Egyptian native. Raymond, your parents were Egyptian Coptic Christians. You're both intimately familiar with Egypt. What is the state of affairs right now? The Arab Spring in many ways began in Egypt. You could say it began in Tunisia, late 2010, but it really blew up, no pun intended, in Egypt in 2011. We've seen two major revolutions, Tawfik. General Sisi was just elected president. What is the state of affairs on the ground in Egypt right now? Any signs for hope?
There is hope, and I see hope in three things. First, the powers that are against radical Islam now are not only the government, but the people themselves. Plus, the attack on the ideology of the radicals is huge on the social media, Facebook, Twitters. So this is one element here. You don't see only the government trying or the military or intelligence in this war. No, you see the people themselves plus the social media exposure for the ideology. That is great step forward, I see it. The second is the current situation in Egypt financially is difficult, but there is a tendency from the international community, especially from the Arab world, like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and other countries to support and help Egypt in this critical stage. The third is the Egyptians have faced similar problem in the 90s and they managed to deal with it. So if the international community just let the Egyptians do it in their own way to defeat radical Islam there and control it, and you see actually a decline in general in the rates of major explosions that happened after the removal of Morsi. There was some terrorist acts and there is a beginning of so I see some elements of hope here. It's not just absolutely useless situation.
But the Muslim Brotherhood will not go quietly, which is kind of their MO. They're not going quietly.
Of course not. They will always cause a lot of trouble, and you still have all the possibilities on the table, depending on the decisions that will be taken.
Absolutely. And Raymond, you recently wrote a piece, which everyone can find at RaymondIbrahim.com, about how the Muslim Brotherhood, and Tawfik, you know very well about this, how the Muslim Brotherhood is using rape, sexual assaults to attack their enemies. We have a clip. It's graphic, folks. Just a warning, we have a short clip. We've edited it because it is graphic. A clip of the Muslim Brotherhood carrying out what can only be called a sexual assault in Egypt. Take a look. Brutal stuff. Now, Raymond, you wrote a piece about this, and again, we edited that, folks, because it is brutal, graphic footage of a sexual assault carried out by the Muslim Brotherhood. Raymond, tell us what's going on here, how the Brotherhood is using this as a weapon.
Sure, Eric. What's going on is basically among the Muslim Brotherhoods and the Islamists and some of the Salafis and so forth, they feel that since the post-Brotherhood revolution that saw the ousting of Morsi, that they want retaliation, and that we saw the retaliation, for example, against the Copts, where up to 80 churches were attacked and burned. But what we're seeing now is it's like a bitter, sadistic sort of retaliation, where the logic is women, of course, you belong at home anyway. if you're a good Muslim, the nerve for you to not just be out, but you're celebrating the man who actually ousted the Islamist agenda, for example, and ousted the Brotherhood. So we're going to retaliate. And in their mind, of course, you have to understand they're not doing anything wrong. They have Islamic clerics who come up and actually blame the women, say it's your fault because why are you out in public? But even before that, there was a story where a Muslim Brotherhood member actually raped a 6-year-old boy, just because the boy was holding pictures of Sisi, of course, the arch enemy of the Brotherhood, and singing his praises, and he lured him into a shed and actually raped him, and he said, I'll show you and your Sisi. So it's just a very kind of primitive, retaliatory type of process that's going on. And but the problem is it has traction, it gets legitimacy, again, from Islamic ideology, again, saying that, women, you need to follow men, and men should be Muslims, women out and about and, dressed in Western attire and praising, a guy who's seen as anti-Islamist, well, they're free game, obviously, and anyone else.
And this is really the true face of the Muslim Brotherhood, Raymond. And Tawfik, right. I saw you recently at an event here in Washington, D.C. Yeah. You pulled me aside and you told me about this sexual assault story. Yeah. And you said, Eric, you must do this story.
Yes.
So we have to do it. What are your thoughts after seeing the footage of the Muslim Brotherhood sexually assaulting innocent women in the streets of Egypt?
Yeah. I tell you, first of all, Eric, the Muslim Brotherhood have prepared people psychologically to accept the concept of sexual assaults. When they justified attacking women in Tahrir Square, the sexual harassment was existent. But when the Islamists came to power, I mean the Muslim Brotherhood, many of their leadership started to justify attacking women, and they criticized the victims of rape instead of supporting them. So this was the first step in the process. Then when you see this video, you can see one important thing. It happened at the same day or time of the President Al-Sisi, President Sisi's speech, which was a very historical speech that has wonderful meanings for the future, reformation of Islam, new understanding and peaceful understanding for the text. And it was really wonderful speech. They ruined the whole image by doing this catastrophe, by making a woman naked in the middle of Tahrir Square, and they distracted the whole public opinion and the world media toward this instead of Al-Sisi first presidential talk, which was very historical, meaningful, because this is the first defeat of an Islamic regime probably in the world. So they ruined the event, tried to ruin it. And the third point, which many people may ask, how could you predict that the Brotherhood were behind this attack? When you see the timing of it and the way it is done, it's a new way to get a woman completely naked and through the water, boiled water on her body. This is something new. When something new happened on this particular time, and there is someone benefiting from it, and what make it really very clear is when you see the video camera. Have you noticed the video camera here is not head to head?
Right.
If something happened while I'm in a demonstration, I'm trying to take a photo, I can't get this position with such quality. And this explains to you why the first video that was released about the victim was from Rasd, which is news media for the Ikhwan or the Muslim Brotherhood. This was the first, this was the first video to be released by the Muslim Brotherhood. Is it just all coincidence to get such a quality? Some man from the Brotherhood in this spot in this particular time by chance? It's very hard to imagine anyone doing it but the Brotherhood orchestrating it.
And Raymond, you monitor the Arab media so closely. I want to ask you two things, really. You're of Coptic Christian descent, obviously. Tell me the situation on the ground for Copts in Egypt right now, number one. And number two, what's the reaction in the Arab media and among the people of Egypt to the Obama administration's continued support of the Muslim Brotherhood, and they continue to hassle President Sisi in many ways?
Well, to your first question about the Copts, you have to understand the Copts are in a very bad position. It's a sort of between a rock and a hard place, no matter who is in charge. Personally, I think Sisi is, of course, markedly better than the Muslim Brotherhood. Some people say he's pious, he has Islamist inclinations and so forth, which may be true, but still, on the whole, I think he has much better approach to the Copts. Definitely the things that he said are much better. He meets with the Pope. and things of this sort. They've promised to build the nearly 80 churches that the Brotherhood have destroyed. So far, one can say so good. On the other hand, you have to remember that the problem isn't really, it wasn't Morsi and it wasn't Sisi and it wasn't Mubarak. It's the Islamist indoctrination of the society of Egypt among the Muslim majority populace, which is such that it sees the Christians and non-Muslims in general, or any minorities, as inferior. And so if for example, as often happens in Egypt, another a flare-up occurs, Muslims accuse a Coptic youth of going out with a Muslim girl, and then they go and burn a couple of churches. It's going to be very difficult for Sisi to come
Ray,
very strongly on the side of the
I
Copts.
hate to stop you there, Ray, but we got to take it to the break right now. Coming up is the Caliphate, ready to return. Stick around.
Pat Boone here with a word about bank safety. Do you think your money is safe in the bank? Don't bank on it. A generation ago, bank accounts felt secure and they paid interest. This encouraged the virtue of thrift and saving. But today, bank accounts pay virtually nothing, and they've shifted from low risk to high risk. For example, did you know your money deposited in most U.S. banks could be subject to limited withdrawal and even confiscation? Oh yes, and that's just the first of 19 risks explained in a new white paper entitled Don't Bank on It. You still think your bank deposits are safe? You better get this vital new Don't Bank on It white paper now. Call the number on the screen or visit SwissAmerica.com, the gold standard. Learn how simple it is to become your own banker today.
Millions of Americans with an ostomy live their lives to the fullest every day. And over the last 10 years, thousands have chosen Liberator Medical as their caring and reliable resource for ostomy supplies. Liberator Medical is a nationally accredited Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance provider, so we can handle all your Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance paperwork and billing. And Liberator Medical has been chosen as a preferred supplier by all the leading ostomy manufacturers, including Coloplast, Hollister, Convatec, and Generics. We supply all these leading ostomy brands, so you can always get the ostomy supplies and accessories you want and trust. And all of our ostomy care specialists are product certified by the manufacturers. Shipping is free and discreetly delivered right to your door. Unhappy with your present ostomy supplier? Call Liberator Medical and ask about our free ostomy sampling program. We also offer catheters and urological supplies.
Call 1-800-513-3076. That's 1-800-513-3076.
ستعود إن شاء الله، ستعود الولايات المتحدة العربية على يد هذا الرجل ومن معه إن شاء الله. ستكون عاصمة الخلافة، ستكون عاصمة الولايات المتحدة العربية هي القدس إن شاء الله.
Now, that was a leading Muslim Brotherhood cleric speaking at a rally in Egypt just prior to Mohammed Morsi being elected in 2012. The Brotherhood's goal, like that of every jihadist group, is the return of the Caliphate. Raymond, I want to go to you. For those who don't know, tell us what the Caliphate is.
The Caliphate is basically the Islamic government, the Islamic polity historically and doctrinally. After the Prophet Muhammad died in 632, and his followers, who became known as the caliphs or khalifa, which is basically the successors, they became basically, in Western parlance, the emperors. And their government grew out of Mecca, or their rule, let's put it, and it spread out through the Islamic conquests all across North Africa, Southwest Asia, and so forth. And then that became all the land that was ruled by Islam was the Caliphate. Now, when you say ruled by Islam, it means ruled by Islamic Sharia law, which of course is what the Caliph is responsible for enforcing, because in Islam, and specifically in the concept of the Caliphate, there is no separation between politics and religion. It's all one and the same, which is of course Sharia. So when you think of Caliphate, you must think of Sharia. And the ultimate actual existence of the Caliphate is to expand. Historically, it always expanded. It expanded from Mecca, and then Medina became part of it. Then it expanded into Egypt and into Libya, all the way until into Spain, Far East into India, and so forth. And so its ultimate purpose was conquest and bringing lands under its authority and then subjugating it in the context of enforcing Sharia law. In fact, among the Ottomans, who were the greatest jihadists really of the Islamic State from a historical point of view, the Sultan or the Caliph, depending on how you want to call him, was actually exonerated from all of Islamic duties, including prayer and fasting and so forth, simply so he can always be on the battlefield expanding the caliphate in the Islamic Empire. And so when you hear all these different groups, and it's important to remember that whether you're a moderate or a radical Islamist, if you're an Islamist, you are fundamentally radical simply because you want the return of a caliphate. And the return of a caliphate and everything it implies is fundamentally radical and hostile to everything non-Islamic.
Tawfik, what does the rise of ISIS, the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria right now, they're forming, it seems, a mini caliphate. What does that mean for the Middle East?
Simply means another Taliban in the middle of the Middle East, threatening a terrorist training camp at a very big level, threatening the security of neighbor countries from all directions, from Israel to Saudi Arabia. And not only that, some of them can try to reach Sinai to attack the Suez Canal. So we can have major spillover effect here. In addition, the Shia will try also to resist them. So you will see a Shia part in Iraq supported by Iran, which will likely attract or might attract the Shia in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia to join them to make a big Shia state. And in this case, the oil sources in Saudi Arabia could be affected at the end. So you are dealing with a situation that can be very explosive and can affect the future of the world and its economy and security.
Yeah, and we have obviously Jordan, we have Lebanon, we have Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
this thing could spiral
everywhere around. So you can, and also we have to learn here, Eric, from our mistake before when we supported, remember the Taliban or Al Qaeda one day against the Russians, and at the end they turned against us.
Yeah. Well, Tawfik, much more coming up about the Shia jihadists after the break.
Yes.
We're going to discuss what does Iran want. We're going to discuss that and how we can win this thing. What can we do? We have some answers after the break. Don't move.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
And welcome back. I want to get into some possible solutions with Raymond and Tawfik, a strategy to defeat the Islamists who are clearly on the march right now. But first, we have Sunni and Shia, as we were saying before the break, killing each other across the Middle East, and the rise of ISIS has made it that much worse. And of course, Iran is the Shia powerhouse. I want to get both of your thoughts on this. Raymond first, you're a student of Islamic history, as is Tawfik. Is this as bad as you've seen it between Sunni and Shia?
Well, it's very bad, but of course it has precedence throughout history between Shias and Sunnis. You see this sort of thing all the time, and it's when it comes to these sorts of groups, it's basically, who's the immediate enemy, and then as they continue fighting each other, you find it gets smaller and smaller. And in fact, based on a saying attributed to the Islamic prophet Muhammad, it basically says something like there are 70 Islamic groups, and only one of them is really Islamic. Which means, and this goes to the idea of why they're constantly warring, because each one claims they have the truth. The others are heretics and infidels and so forth, Shia Sunnis, and you even see it among Sunnis themselves and even Shias themselves. So, but of course, always the greatest enemy is the infidel, and in this context, it would be in the region Israel, of course, the West in general. But when you see all of these numbers or these groups kind of being sidelined for whatever reason, and now you have the Sunnis and the Shias or any other subgroups together, then they go to war. So that's usually the modus operandi among these groups.
Yeah, it seems that Sunni and Shia jihadists can put their differences aside when it comes to killing Americans or Israelis, unfortunately. Tawfik, you've done a lot of work on trying to form a more moderate form of Islam over the years. Tell us more about what you're doing to try. Obviously, jihadists are on the ascent right now, but there's a lot of good things going on the ground in the Middle East too that we might not hear as much about. Tell us about that.
I'm actually trying to work at the cause of the problem, not just the problem itself, to treat the cause of the disease rather than the symptoms. Terrorism is the symptoms, but the ideology is the cause of the disease. I'm starting hopefully a center to counter radicalism at the mental level in what I call the brain stand, that focus on ideology, psychology, behavioral modification, just working at the mental level. This is number one. Number two, I have already experimented some things. I created a modern interpretation for the Quran, around 650 pages. Yeah. Then I created a Facebook out of it with hundreds of examples to reinterpret the text in a relatively peaceful way to avoid such hatred and violence and barbarism. And surprisingly, in 1 year time, I got more than now 2 million likes or followers on it, which still tells you there is a momentum and hope for some change. Had I done this before, like 10 years ago, I wouldn't have got 50 people. Now I got 2 million people following it. So you have on one hand the terrorism exacerbated, which is expected from the radicals. And at the same time, there is a trend within the Muslim societies, or within some of them at least, to move away from the radicals. And this is the momentum that I believe we should use to defeat radicalism at the end.
Right. Raymond, we have about a minute left. Tawfik is obviously trying to, I guess you would say, a reformation in many ways. You wrote an article recently. You're not as optimistic about an Islamic reformation or the possibility. Tell us what you think.
Well, I basically think a lot of people are putting a lot of hope that just as Christianity reformed, and they use it in a very simplistic sense, the Christian Reformation, so Islam can reform. But from my point of view, Islam and what we're seeing right now, this is the Islamic Reformation. Our confusion is the word reform. Reform means to improve something, to change it into something better. In Christianity, basically the Protestants said we reject tradition from the church and we want the literal words of the Bible, and that was it. What you're seeing now is the same exact thing. Just like with Christianity, we are living in an age where Muslims are much more literate than before. Qurans are actually being distributed in the millions. But this wasn't the case before in the medieval era. And so you have Muslims who are becoming very acquainted with the actual teachings of Islam, including also the Hadith. And so really what I'm seeing is what we call radical Islam or Islamism or Salafism, or even if you want to go way back to Wahhabism, it is a reformation of Islam. In fact, that's what Wahhab, the man who began this Wahhabi movement, or so-called, all he wanted to do was reform Islam by going straight to the
Raymond,
text.
We got to leave it right
when
there.
You come to the text, that's where you see the differences.
Yes, we got to leave it right there. We're final thoughts after the break with Raymond and Tawfik. Stick around. What to watch in the Middle East. Don't move.
Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? Hi, I'm George Foreman. People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
InventHelp has been helping inventors for more than 30 years and has sales offices nationwide. InventHelp can provide patent referrals and submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. If you have an idea and want to try to patent it and submit it to companies, you should call InventHelp today for free information.
Listen, I can't guarantee your company will be interested in your idea, but I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
For your free inventors information, call 1-800-461-9290. That's 1-800-461-9290.
If you had a choice between going bald and a full head of hair, which would you choose? Advances in medical science have resulted in the world's first and only permanent solution to hair loss.
Yes!
You wash it, you cut it. It's your own real, naturally growing hair. When it comes to hair restoration, no one in the world has more experience than Bosley. The results look completely natural and are affordable on nearly any budget. But the entire process can't be explained in 60 brief seconds. So to find out more about this clinically proven and permanent solution to hair loss, call now to receive your free no-obligation information kit. It'll answer all of your questions about hair loss and hair restoration. Plus, we'll also send you this $250 gift certificate just for calling. Every day you wait, you're losing more hair. So don't put it off any longer. You owe it to yourself to find out the facts. Choose hair. Choose Bosley.
Call 800-868-9957. That's 800-868-9957.
They're the original Islamic terrorist group. They spawned Al-Qaeda and Hamas. They're America's next great enemy, and they're in your backyard. If you want to understand the war on terror, you must first understand the Muslim Brotherhood. Pick up my new book, The Brotherhood, America's Next Great Enemy. Available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold from coast to coast. We only have about a minute or so left. I want to get your thoughts real quick on what to watch for in the Middle East as we move forward. It's been a chaotic year. Any hope, any optimism for 2014 as we move along here?
Look, in Egypt, there is some hope for optimism, as I mentioned to you, with the leadership of President al-Sisi and people turning against radical Islam. That's good. But in general, the future will be determined with the decisions that will be taken. Are we going just to treat the symptoms of the disease and focus on it? And it failed. We have in Afghanistan, it was not enough. In Iraq, you have seen the results. So we, here in America, spend $5 trillion and we have not really achieved real stability in these places. So I think it will all depend if the next stage, the governments will be able to attack the cause of the problem and work hard. You need to use effective psychological warfare operations and financially also crack down on the financial support for terrorists.
Tawfik, Hamid, thank you. Raymond, Ibrahim, thank you. Check out their work online. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.